past the 1 o'clock. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Anomaly Detection for Scientific Discovery seminar series. And this initiative is oriented towards researchers and scientists who are interested in anomaly detection techniques and their application in scientific research. So you can check out our website for more details. We have an amazing lineup of speakers, and you can also subscribe to receive further talk announcements. So for the house rules of the meeting, so please unmute yourself during the meeting. And after the talk, we will be a Q&A session. You can either raise your hand or input your questions in the chat to ask your questions. And for people on YouTube, you can also enter your questions in live chat, and we will be able to deliver them to the speaker after the talk. So right now, I will invite Eric to introduce our speaker to the audience. Eric?
Yes, we're very happy to have Jie Ren as our first speaker in this seminar series. She'll be speaking on reliable deep anomaly detection. Just a little bit about her to start. She's a senior research scientist at Google Brain. Her research focuses on developing robust and reliable methods for biomedical data analysis with a focus on certainty quantification and out-of-distribution detection. She received her PhD in computational biology and bioinformatics at the University of Southern California. She also did a postdoc there. She has a master's in statistics from Peking University, and also was a AI resident at Google Brain before joining there full-time. So yes, we're very happy to have you, Jie, and please take it away.
We can't hear you. I can hear Jie. Can you hear?
There's no sound for me either.
Can you hear me now?
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Yeah. So thanks, Eric, for the introduction. I'm very honored to be here to share about my recent work in anomaly detection and some applications in medical applications. And so before I start, I would like to share a little bit why I'm interested in this field and how did I start, how I started working on this field. So I have a background in computational biology. So when I was a PhD student, one of my projects was to detect viruses in DNA sequencing data. And at the time, I found a deep learning algorithm was very efficient to achieve high accuracy. But when I deployed the model to real data, where the real environment may have not only viruses, but also have some human genomes sequence. And then I found sometimes the algorithm, my method can wrongly predict the human genome sequence to viruses. And I found later, I found it's not just in my viral study. I found this OOD, like out of distribution detection problem, is very common in other traditional machine learning applications such as vision and language. So then I figured out actually as long as the training data cannot exhaust all possible classes in the real world, there will be an OOD detection problem there. So since then, I have translated my research to focus on this out of distribution detection with a strong motivation in biomedical applications. So that's my journey to the deep learning and out of distribution detection. And I hope this will make it easier for you to understand why I'm interested in this field and why this is the focus of my research. Okay, so let me start my talk today. So I want to start my talk with introducing some key concepts in this out of distribution detection field. So, so first, why do we need reliable deep learning? In an ideal world, we would like to have the test distribution follow the same distribution as the training distribution, so that the model we learned from the training can generalize well to the test. However, in real world, it's never the case. We have no control on the test, especially when the model is deployed into a new environment. So in the new environment, we often see the following types of dataset shift in the distribution. For example, the first type is the covariant shift, where the distribution of the feature X can change from environment to environment or from time to time. For example, the test data has corruption and error added, then the quality of the test data can be greatly reduced. This is quite common in real application. For example, if we design a image classification for the self-driving car, then the quality of the input image can be highly affected by the weather or the light. The second type of the dataset shift is called open set recognition. This is the focus of our talk today. The open set recognition describes the scenario where we have the new classes appear at the test time. So this is very common in real applications. Suppose a very simple example can be shown here. Suppose we have 3 classes in the training set. And at the test time, we have not only a dog or cat or fish, but also the birds showing up. Excuse me. Okay, I'm back. Sorry. So suppose we have some new classes like the bird showing up in the test set. So we really want the model to have the awareness of this new class and do not predict this bird to any of the in-distribution classes. So this open set recognition problem is very common in the real application. Here I'm showing one real example in the medical image analysis. So here, suppose we want to predict the skin conditions based on the image. It would be great if we can make it make this work as a mobile app so that people can easily diagnose or get some information for their skin disease from through a mobile app. So there are some common skin conditions. For example, the acne or eczema. Those have many image examples so that we can use them for training a classifier. However, on the other hand, we also have so many rare conditions, and those do not have enough examples for training. So during the training process, we can only build a classifier for those common conditions. But at the test time, when the model deployed to the real scenario, the model will be exposed to the rare conditions. And we want the model to have the awareness of those rare conditions and prevent making any predictions for those rare conditions to any of the in-distribution classes. Another similar example is the classification of the genomic sequences. This is the benchmark data that I created 2 years ago, where the motivation is from my viral study. So we know that there are so many bacterial species existing in the world, but our knowledge for the bacterial species is very limited by the technology we have. So although we have been discovering new bacterial species every year, but there are still many unknown species exist in the real data. So why this is an important problem? Because bacterial detection is crucial for diagnosis and treatment of the infectious diseases. Because the new bacteria species can be discovered in a later year. So at the time of training, we only have the collection of data for the known bacteria classes, and we can train a good classifier for the known classes. But when we deploy the model to the real data, which contains both known and unknown species, our model should be able to, ideally, our model should be able to classify those known classes correctly, and also have a sense of those out of distribution unknown classes and prevent making any prediction for those. So based on the two real applications, we will have a sense of this open set recognition problem. So the next question is, how do people evaluate whether the model have a good sense of OOD awareness, whether the model performed well for this OOD detection task? So typically people in this toy example, for example, we have CIFAR10 as the in distribution and SVHN as out of distribution data. We want to have some confidence measure or confidence score that can describe the confidence for this input for being in distribution. Ideally, if the confidence score is good enough, we want the confidence score for the in distribution input to be greater than the confidence score for the OOD inputs. And to quantitatively measure this, people usually use the AURC score to see how separately, how well the confidence score separate the in distribution and out of distribution. If we have an AUC score as 1, which that means that we have a perfect separation between the in distribution and out of distribution. Now, next question is, how well is the deep neural networks perform on OOD detection task? Oh, sorry. Okay, before that, I want to introduce some common, like popular method for defining the confidence score. So one common or like the most simple method for confidence score is called maximum of softmax probability. We call it MSP. This is just to take the maximum of the predicted probability for each class. And ideally, we want the model to give a nearly uniform distribution for different classes for the OOD input, so that the model does not favor any of the in distribution classes for this OOD input. Another very popular measure of confidence score is the Mahalanobis distance. This is to measure the distance between the test input to the in distribution training data. So it first extracts the last layer embeddings for the training inputs. Then it fits a Gaussian distribution, class conditional Gaussian distribution for each of the class in the training set. And then at the test time, we measure the distance, the Mahalanobis distance between the test input to each of the in distribution classes. And if the distance is small enough, we would this will suggest this input is in distribution. And if the distance is large enough, it will be we predict this input as out of distribution. So these two methods are the popular OOD detection method people use in real application. And you may wonder how well is the current deep neural networks perform on the OOD detection task. So here I show a simulation study on very simple 2-moon classification problem. where the two in-distribution classes are represented by the blue dots and the orange dots. And we also have a the set of OOD dots indicated by the red. So ideally, we want the model to have high confidence score for the in-distribution data points and the low confidence score for the out of distribution region. However, the experiment shows that if we build deep neural networks and use that to predict this two-class classification problem, then we see the model have very high confidence for this out of distribution region, the red region. It only has a slight lower confidence at the boundary of the decision boundary, but this is not very desirable. So as you can see here, the deep neural networks suffers from this high confidence, overconfidence prediction for the OOD inputs. So we need a better method to improve from there. Okay, so so here I want to give you some intuition on why this OOD detection problem is very challenging. As you can see here, I show a toy example here with two in-distribution classes, the trucks and the airplane, as the two in-distribution classes. And if we have some OOD data, such as MNIST, those digits, then this become a easy OOD detection task because the MNIST have very different background color to the in-distribution class and also have very different semantic meaning to the in-distribution class. So for this this kind of OOD detection task, we call it far OOD. And many methods can perform pretty well for this kinds of benchmark. However, we also have another type of OOD detection called near-OOD detection task. As shown here, suppose we have some pickup track as OOD inputs. We want the model to detect this pickup track as OOD. Then the model, it requires the model to have a very good understanding of the semantic difference between the track and pickup track. And this is quite challenging, sometimes even for human. And another example is the OOD class of the ship versus the in-distribution class airplane. As you can see here, the OOD class and the in-distribution class share similar kinds of blue background, so that the model, when we really want the model to detect this OOD class, the model needs to have a good understanding of the background and the semantics, and the model really need to focus on the semantic part to distinguish the in-distribution versus the out of distribution. Otherwise, the model may be confused by this blue background shared by the in-distribution and out of distribution. So this later set of out of distribution type, we call it near-OOD tasks. This is more challenging, but actually it's more common in real applications. And so in my next, the first talk, like the work I want to share with you is this exploring the limits of the OOD detection, where we focus on this challenging near-OOD detection task and try to push the limit of this performance and see what kind of performance gains we can get using the current advanced technology. So this is joint work with Stan at Stanford and Balaji, my colleague Balaji at Google. Okay. Okay. So this this work, as I said, we are trying hard to push the limit of the near-OOD benchmark. So as I mentioned previously, that the CIFAR-10 versus SVHN, this kind of task can be, we characterize this as a far OOD task, because the in distribution, out of distribution share they have very different background, texture, and also very different semantics. So this become a easy, pretty relatively easy task for OOD detection. And since many methods have been tried to tackle this problem, the best method actually can achieve 99% AUROC. But for this near-OOD task, like CIFAR 100 versus CIFAR 10, this is the key benchmark we will focus on in this paper. And the CIFAR 100, CIFAR 10, in total, there are 110 non-overlapping classes. So we use this CIFAR 100 versus CIFAR 10 as this open set recognition benchmark. And because there are so many similar semantic classes between the CIFAR 100, CIFAR 10, you can see that this is, we treat this as a near-OOD benchmark task. Actually, many efforts has been made for this CIFAR 10 versus CIFAR 100 benchmark, and including the MSP, the simple method MSP, or the outlier exposure, where people use the general outliers to put that into the training procedure so that the model have a sense of outlier detection in the training procedure. Or adding the Bayesian neural network, such as Gaussian process last layer to the model, or using the hybrid model where people combine the generative model and the discriminative model into the same model to have a better understanding of the out of distribution task inputs. Although many efforts have been made, but the highest AUROC for this benchmark is still only 85%. So at the time we were curious to know what is the human performance? Like, is it really a difficult, hard benchmark for human? And what is the human performance? So then we designed this software where we randomly select 20 images from the CIFAR dataset and ask the user to select the CIFAR 10, the images belong to CIFAR 10. Then we found actually the human performance is not bad, it's quite high, around 95%. So that indicate that this task is not that hard. So the model should have some room to improve. And then at the same time, we noticed that this VIT, vision transformer model. The vision transformer model is a pre-trained plus fine-tuning regime model. And it splits the input image into patches and then embed the patches to the embedding space and add the position embedding, and then pass it to the transformer encoder and use the output of the encoder as an input to the final classification head. So it's first pre-trained on a large data set such as ImageNet 21K or the JFT, and then fine-tuned on a downstream task like CIFAR 10 or CIFAR 100. We noticed that under this VIT pre-training plus fine-tuning regime, the CIFAR, the performance, like text accuracy for the CIFAR dataset actually got much improved, especially for the CIFAR 100 dataset. Compared with the model, like ResNet model training from scratch, the VIT model actually achieved much better accuracy for the CIFAR 100 dataset. Then we were curious whether this VIT model can give us good performance for OOD detection task. It actually turned out that the VIT model also has much better performance on the OOD detection for this near-OOD benchmark CIFAR 100 versus CIFAR 10. It actually improved a lot from the previous state of art, 85%, to now we have 96% AUROC using the Mahalanobis distance. Or using MSP, we have a little bit lower, but still significantly higher than the previous state of art. So this is very surprising to us. So we were interested in investigating what was the difference between the training from scratch model and the VIT model. So here we project the data to two in distribution classes, the sunflower and the turtles, and one out of distribution class, the automobile, into the two-dimensional space. And on the left-hand side, it's the projection based on the embedding from the wide ResNet training from scratch. As you can see here, the out of distribution data points kind of overlaps with the in distribution classes, so that the performance for OOD detection is not that well. On the right-hand side, you can see using the VIT model fine-tuned on CFAR 100, the out of distribution class and the two in distribution classes are well separated, so that as you can see from here that this lead to the better OOD detection performance, as we show in the previous slides. So we also, at the time, we were curious about whether this the good performance was due to the model architecture. For example, how about other pre-trained models like BIT, the big transfer, which is the ResNet-based model, or another architecture called MLP mixer, which is a purely multi-layer perceptron-based model. We did some ablation study for the model architecture to study whether the VIT model architecture, the transformer model architecture, is very special to this good performance or not. And this table actually shows the result for the BIT model and the VIT model and the MLP mixer. As you can see here, we see that BIT model have roughly like generally lower performance than the VIT model in their OOD detection performance. But notice that if we use a BIT R50, the performance was not that good. But if we use the BIT R111 times 3, the bigger model for BIT, then we see this performance, OOD detection performance is much improved. Although it's lower, still lower than the VIT, but it's much improved than the BIT smaller model. And for the MLP mixer, we see the performance of OOD detection for the MLP mixer is roughly at the same level as the VIT model. So from this table, we see that the pre-training strategy is helpful, like more helpful for the VIT and the MLP mixer than the BIT model. So the pre-training definitely helpful, but the special architecture like VIT and MLP mixture can benefit more from this pre-training than the BIT model. Okay. Next, so although we have very good like 96% AUROC on the OOD detection for the CFAR 100, CFAR 10 benchmark, we still want to investigate some failure cases where the OOD images are wrongly predicted as in distribution. So in this figure, we show in the first row the OOD examples that has very close distance to the in distribution classes. And in the second row, here we list the in distribution images, which has the corresponding in distribution images, which has the closest distance to the OOD above. So here, as you can see, so those sometimes the OOD images that falsely like wrongly predict as in distribution is not because it's because this OOD image are very similar to the in distribution class. For example, the the automobile shown in the purple box actually looks very similar to the bus class, the example in the bus class in the in-distribution class. And so here we can see that sometimes the false positives are actually due to the mislabeling or ambiguity in the CFAR dataset. So the mistakes are kind of sensible to human. If we do this experiment ourselves, human, we may also make the same kind of mistakes. Okay. Then to test the idea for this pre-training and fine-tuning idea on another data modality, we tested on this challenging genomics near-OOD benchmark. As I introduced previously, this benchmark contains some bacteria species discovered by before a certain year as in distribution, and the bacteria species discovered after a certain year are treated as out of distribution. And because this is a sequence data, we use the BERT pre-training strategy to pre-train the model, where we randomly mask some token in the sequence and then let the transformer model to predict the mask token. And after the pre-training, we do a fine-tuning procedure for this bacterial classification task. And as the table shown on the right-hand side, the test accuracy actually got, using this pre-trained plus fine-tuning regime, we have both test accuracy and OOD detection performance improved compared with the previous 1D CNN training from scratch. So here you can see that this pre-training plus fine-tuning regime indeed are very helpful for both vision and genomics applications. Okay. And next, because in this study, our goal is to explore the limits. So we want to try other techniques that can further improve the performance of our OOD detection task. So we first try this few shot outlier exposure. I know in the real research literature, people usually want to assume that there's no OOD data during the training, and then they want to have the performance comparison for this under this setup where we do not assume any OOD data available for training. But in real application, it's often possible to collect a handful of known outlier examples. Because having a set of outlier examples can be really helpful for improve the performance. So here we test this idea for few shot outlier exposure, where we assume that we have a very few examples for the outlier classes during the training, and we collect the in distribution and out of distribution data points and pass it to the pre-trained encoder and get the embeddings. And then we build a simple classifier on top of the embedding to classify not only the in distribution classes, but also the out of distribution classes. And then we use this, the sum of the probability for the in distribution classes as a confidence score for OOD detection. And then this figure shows that the OOD performance in terms of AUROC with respect to the number of outlier examples per CFAR10 class. As you can see here, with just 2 labeled examples per outlier class, we are able to further improve the performance in terms of AUROC from 96 to 99. So this shows that with this just a few shot outlier exposure, we can significantly improve the performance of this near-OOD benchmark. Okay, we also, on the other hand, we also tried this zero-shot outlier exposure using the CLIP model. The CLIP model is also still a pre-trained model, but it's pre-trained on the text and image pairs. So it's still a transformer-based model, and it can be used for a classification task. Suppose we have an image, input image as a dog, and then we have a set of class labels as a text. Then we can we can compute the similarity between the input image and to the labels in their embedding space. And we will use the one with the highest similarity as a predicted label class. Here, our focus is not for the classification task. Our focus is on the out of distribution detection task. So what we do instead is to collect the in distribution class labels and also the out of distribution class labels. And we put them together as the whole set of class labels. And then given the input image, we measure the similarity between this input image to each of the text labels in their embedding space. And then those similarity is then passed to a softmax function to get the probability scores. And then the sum of the probability scores over the in distribution classes will be used as a confidence score. By doing that, we see actually the performance for this zero-shot outlier exposure is already very good enough compared with the baseline. It achieves 94% AUROC. I want to make a note here that we do not make use, so here we do not fine-tune the CLIP model, and then we do not use any outlier data for fine-tuning. What we only use is the out of distribution candidate labels. And we call this a weak form of outlier exposure because we don't use the outlier images for the fine-tuning. Okay. So yeah, so here I'm just showing some techniques for field shot and zero shot outlier exposure on top of the previous fine-tuning regime. Then another very interesting technique we can use is the zero-shot OOD detection based on Mahalanobis distance. So as we know, we have a good representation from the pre-training models. So ideally, if we have a very good presentation for the input, then we should have a decent performance for Mahalanobis distance for the OOD detection task, right? Because the representation we learned from the pre-training model is good. However, when we did this experiment, so we extract the pre-trained embeddings and then use the Mahalanobis distance to measure the distance between the test input to the training fitted Gaussian. We found the performance of this pure Mahalanobis distance was not that good. For example, like in the genomics OOD benchmark, the AUROC was only even lower than 50%. So we were curious to know why was that and what happened to this Mahalanobis distance method. And later we figure out actually there is a failure mode in this Mahalanobis distance. The reason is that the background statistics in the input image, where we see the here we see that the background like the background of the out of distribution class and the in distribution class share the similar kinds of blue background. And Mahalanobis distance itself actually can be regarded as the negative log likelihood between the test input under the likelihood of the test input under the fitted Gaussian distribution. And For the likelihood of the input image, it can be decomposed into the background, the term for the background, likelihood for the background statistic, and the likelihood for the semantic statistics. Then if the background term dominates the whole likelihood score, then it makes it very hard for the final score to distinguish between the out of distribution class and in distribution class, because they share the similar kind of background. So instead, we just propose a very simple fix to this Mahalanobis distance method. We fit a Gaussian background Gaussian distribution on the entire training data, ignoring the class labels. And then we compute the Mahalanobis distance between the test input to the background Gaussian. And then the final score is the difference between the raw Mahalanobis distance score minus the background, the distance to the background distribution. By doing this simple correction, we are able to significantly improve the OOD detection performance by a lot, as you seeing here, that we in this CIFAR 100 CIFAR 10 benchmark, we were able to improve it from 74% to 81%. This is a separate work from the previous work for exploring the limits of the out of distribution detection. But I think I can I combine these two works together because I feel this is really can be fitted into this zero-shot outlier exposure regime. Okay, so as a result, you can we test this idea on multiple benchmark data sets, and for not only the vision but also the biology and also the language. In all the scenarios we tested, the relative Mahalanobis distance have shown significant improvement over the raw Mahalanobis distance. Yeah. So to sum up this this section, we have shown that the OOD detection performance can be largely improved using the pre-training and bigger models. And we also show the pre-trained embeddings well suited for the few shot and zero shot OOD detection. We also mentioned this background confounding issue when we use the zero shot OOD detection method, and this background factor need to be corrected to improve the performance. And I want to note that in the whole in this section, we use this CIFAR 100, CIFAR 10. We mainly use this CIFAR 10, CIFAR 100 near-OOD benchmark for doing the experiment. As you can see, we are kind of reaching the limit of this for this benchmark. So in the future, we really need some harder near-OOD detection benchmark to further study this problem. Okay. I wonder whether I can answer some questions because I'm presenting the work myself without any interruption. I feel kind of lonely myself. Do you think we can answer some questions for this section before I start presenting the second work?
Yeah, sure. Maybe we can just answer 2 or 3. Well, does it make sense? Yeah, so I can just read off some of the ones in the chat. Let's just keep it at that. So one question about the VIT model. Has VIT seen the OOD classes during pre-training?
Oh, yes. So that's a very good question. So we don't specifically expose the OOD data to the pre-training. What we did is just to bring the pre-trained model on GFT or ImageNet 21K as the checkpoint. And we didn't specifically or intentionally expose the model to the CIFAR data set or CIFAR OOD data set. So that can affect the performance, but we haven't studied how much effect that part of OOD contamination can cause for the performance.
And I think the next set of questions were similar on the BERT model. And what was that pre-trained on?
Yes, so it's pre-trained on the sequence data itself. So we pre-trained on the genomic sequences in the training data. And this is unsupervised pre-training without any exposure to the labels of the training data. Yeah, because it's a BERT style, so we don't really need the labels for pre-training.
And maybe just last one, why compare only the pre-trained transformer-based models, BERT, VIT, to non-transformer-based models trained from scratch? Do we know that makes the biggest difference?
So the question is comparing the VIT training from scratch with the VIT pre-trained model. Is that the question?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, actually, I did that experiment myself. I found it's very difficult to train the VIT model from scratch. I was trying to study this effect, but I didn't. I was not able to train a decent model from scratch for VIT.
Okay, I think the next questions here are more general, so let's save those for the end and move on to the next topic.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So for the next work, this is more towards real applications. This is to detect the long tail of unseen conditions in the dermatology example I mentioned previously. Yeah. As I mentioned previously, that this disease condition can follow a long tail distribution, where we have some frequent conditions with sufficient examples for training. But on the other hand, we have a very long tail infrequent conditions, and those have a very limited data for training. So when we build up the classifier, we can only build up a classifier for the frequent conditions. And in this work, we created a benchmark data set where we have the frequent conditions as inliers in distribution classes, and the infrequent conditions as out of distribution classes. And we also intentionally split the outlier classes into train, validation, the test, and the mutually exclusive, which means the test outlier classes in the test set does not show up in the training set. So here you may note that here we assume we have training outlier data. We have outlier examples during the training. Because this is real application, we were able to collect a set of outlier data for training. I know in the the OOD literature, like OOD community, for the research, people usually want to assume that there's no outlier during the training, but in real application, this is a real case. We do have some outlier for training, and we want to make use of it. Okay, so here I show the model architecture for this for our model. So for each individual, we have at most 6 images capturing different positions of the skin disease, and then the images passed to the pre-trained encoder, for example, like a BIT encoder, and then the embeddings from the 6 images are average put, and then pass it to a fully connected layer. And then we build a classification head on top of it. Because now we have OOD classes for training, we developed this HOD loss, which is hierarchical outlier detection loss. There we have 26 inlier classes and 68 outlier classes for classification at the 5-gram level. In addition, we add this coarse grain level, which is a binary classification between the inlier and outlier. And by combining these two levels of losses, we actually can achieve better performance than the previous baseline method, which is, we call it reject bucket, where the reject bucket means they collapse the OOD classes into one class, and using this only one single reject bucket to represent the outlier. As you see from the table here, that our method using HOD loss actually significantly improved over the baseline reject bucket baseline method. And we tried on different, we tried this idea on different pre-trained model architectures. For example, the model pre-trained on ImageNet or pre-trained on the GFT, or using different pre-training method like the SimClear, which is a self-supervised pre-training model based on the contrastive loss, or the MyClear. This is the multiple instance contrastive loss based self-supervised learning. And for all those different representation learning methods, our HOD loss improved over the baseline. And moreover, we also developed this idea for diverse ensemble. People know that the vanilla deep ensemble actually can improve the performance for uncertainty quantification or out of distribution detection. However, in the regime of this pre-training plus fine-tuning regime, note that the models are using the same pre-training checkpoint. So the diversity between the different models are largely reduced because they share the same pre-trained checkpoint. So in order to increase the diversity between the model members in the ensemble, then what we propose is to ensemble the models from using different representation learning and different loss functions. So here we have reject bucket loss or the HOD loss, 2 types of losses, and we have 4 types of pre-trained encoders. So in total, we have 2 times 4, 8 combinations of the models. Then when we ensemble those different type of models, we get much larger boost in the performance when we ensemble them, comparing with this like vanilla deep ensemble. So this is to show that in the case of the pre-training regime, the diverse ensemble is a better strategy than the vanilla ensemble, because this can increase the diversity among the models within the ensemble set. Yeah, and because this is a real application, we want to have an overall evaluation of the model performance, combining the inlier, like in-distribution prediction accuracy and out-of-distribution detection. So we create this cost matrix where we assign different costs to different model mistakes. For example, we assign the cost of 1 to the incorrect inlier predictions. And we also assign the cost 1 to the outlier, which wrongly predict as inliers, or the inliers wrongly upstand as outlier. By assigning different costs to different model mistake, we're able to evaluate the model's overall performance in the downstream task, and give a overall sense of the model cost in the downstream clinical cost. So yeah, so this is something we found useful in the real application, because our goal is not only just detect OOD, but also have a good performance on in-distribution prediction. Okay, so so in this section, this is a short section, I showed a real application in the dermatology image analysis. Then in this overall talk, what I want to mention is that the OOD detection is very crucial for AI and the machine learning. There are multiple orthogonal directions to improve the OOD performance. In my talk, I have showed the pre-training and bigger model can improve the OOD performance, and a few shot and zero shot, and this hierarchical outlier exposure for further improve the performance. And I also mentioned this diverse ensemble in the regime of the pre-training is important for ensembling the different models. And another direction I haven't mentioned in this talk is the deep generative models. Deep generative model can also be used for OOD detection. So you can fit a generative model for the in-distribution data. And then at the test time, you measure the likelihood of the test input under this generative model of the training data. Then if the likelihood is high, it indicates that this input may likely to be the in-distribution and vice versa. However, in the previous study, people found there are some failure modes in this generative model. I think Eric had a paper on analyze the cause of the failure mode. And I also have some related work that propose some simple fix to this failure mode. So if you're interested, you're welcome to check those works. And overall, so the work I present here can be found on my website, and my team at Google, we have a code base called uncertainty baselines, where we put a lot of baseline methods for uncertainty quantification, OOD detection there. So you are welcome to use that or contribute to it or make use of it for your own research. That's all. Thank you very much. I think I'm a little bit slow, behind my schedule. So that's all for my presentation. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. So clap on behalf of everyone.
Thank you. I hope I make it clear.
Yeah, it's a great talk. Thanks. Very interesting to see the limits that you're pushing these applications to. I will just go back to the Zoom chat and answer the questions that weren't addressed before. So someone asked, why do you think pre-training improves, improves OOD detection performance, especially projecting OOD data far from in-distribution data?
Yeah, this is a very good question. I thought about this a lot, actually. So I think the pre-training is kind of, it mimics the human understanding of the world. So as human, we are exposed to so many things and in our daily life. For the pre-training, we try to make the model exposed to as much data as possible so that the model can learn robust features for model predictions, right, to make predictions. I can give you a very simple example. So if we have just expose the model, ask the model to make a classifier for between apple and banana, then the model may pick up very naive feature like color to make the prediction. Then when we give the model lemon, the model may easily predict it as banana because it's have the similar color as the banana, yellow. However, if we, this is the issue with this is that the model have very naive features and it pick up very naive feature for the prediction. But if we ask the model to be exposed to a very large variety of data, like the baby learning the world, then the model will automatically learn the robust feature. It will learn that not only the color, but also the shape or the texture and so on. They are all important to describing the class. Then when we pass it the lemon to this classifier, it will have the sense that the round shape of this lemon is not similar to the shape of the banana. Then it will have a better understanding of the OOD. So that's my intuition behind why this pre-training is important. it's kind of it's really I think it's helpful for the model to follow the same logic as human and ask the model to learn some robust and comprehensive set of features. And that set of features are very important for OOD detection.
It's related to that. I have my own question of, maybe I missed them in the talk, but have you done kind of ablation studies to see kind of what type of pre-training allows you to have these downstream effects? Like, I can imagine if you're trying to, detect apples from bananas and, you pre-train on something completely unrelated, like images of galaxies, that doesn't help you determine that a lemon is out of distribution in that sense, right?
Yeah, I haven't tried, but I understand your point. Yeah, I think exposed to larger data sets as various as possible is helpful. If we only restrict on a very particular data set, no matter how large it is, it may not be helpful for the model to learn. Yeah.
Related, I guess, the data sets you showed too, a lot of them are images, and so I assume there's a lot of kind of shared structure just in kind of having a good edge detector, no matter kind of what data set you learn it on is probably pretty good. I guess, are you working towards or have any plans to do this on something that you don't have such shared features in, like tabular data, for instance?
I think for the genomics benchmark, actually, if you look at the numbers, the AORC, the best AORC is still around 80% something. So there's still a room to improve. And in that sense, we only have a set of we only use the set of training data sequences for the pre-training. But in the next step, if possible, we should collect as much data set as possible, maybe not just a bacteria data set, but also human or other mammal or eukaryotic genomic sequences, so that the model can learn the whole world instead of a restricted world of bacteria species. Yeah, so that can be used to test the hypothesis.
Nice. One more question came in on the Zoom regarding the first half of the talk. Did you look into a pre-trained non-transformer model?
Yeah, so the BIT model, the big transfer model, is non-transformer model. It's based on ResNet model. So we compared the performance between BIT and BIT. What we see there is a large BIT model, like a BIT 1R, ResNet 101 times 3, have good performance on OOD detection, but still worse than BIT. And a small BIT model actually have not good performance on the OOD detection. So what we conclude from there is, it seems the pre-training can benefit more for BIT architecture than the BIT architecture. But we still don't know what exactly is the cause for that. But it seems the BIT, the Bayesian transformer-based model, is more efficient in OOD detection and pre-training. And the genomics benchmark actually the BERT model is also a transformer-based. So it seems the transformer-based model can benefit more from the pre-training.
Those are all the Zoom questions. Tali, are there any YouTube questions?
So up to now, I haven't seen any. So we will officially end the meeting right now. If you have any questions, you can stay in the Zoom room and interact with the speaker. So I'm gonna end live streaming.
Thank you very much.